Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Margie?
I'm good.
Good.
We got Gabe. Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Ron.
Gabe,
How are you doing?
Yeah,
I'm good.
Gabe should be here. He's maybe just doing a last minute thing.
Oh, totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off as the moderator and do a little introduction, and then sort of set the stage for how we're gonna do the speakers today. So
Okay.
we should be in good shape. Ron, thank you for everything you've done to pull this together today.
No problem.
A lot of work, I know.
I'm going to put my technical screen up for a minute so that people will know what they need to do in case they can't get their stuff together.
Okay.
And then I will, at a little bit after 12 o'clock my time, Central Time, or 1 o'clock your time, I will turn it over and I will be silent after that.
Okay. Sounds good.
So let me, okay.
I'm glad you and all the planners had a chance to work this thing out for us, Margie. This is good.
No, it's great. Hey, Judge Stafford, how are you?
Hi, how are you all doing?
Good. I'm loving those glasses.
Oh, thank you.
Are they readers or actually prescription?
These are my prescription trifocals.
Love them. I love a good cat eye glass.
They
Would you-
are making me happy.
I bet that, you know what? I can, let's see, Jane Ann to all panelists. I can't hear Jane Ann. Jane Ann, are you saying something? Okay. Ron, Jane Ann Gifford. Let's see.
She's the mediator with CJAM,
Yep.
who has helped start everything up.
She needs to be promoted to a panelist, I think,
Yeah.
whoever's doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and I see Jane Ann, we can promote her as a panelist and maybe promote the MoCo Board of Commissioners as a panelist. Would be great. And we'll be able to hear them.
I think Diane Walker also had received an invitation as panelist in case.
Yep, I don't see her listed yet as an attendee. I'm sort of, hey Julie, I'm looking at the list of attendees. And I know the one that just says Jane Ann needs promoted, and I know Monroe County Board of Commissioners, and I will keep an eye out for other panelists and let you know, Ron. Hey, Julie.
Hello, how's everyone today?
I love it.
Deborah, you may want to change your screen name to be your name and then like HEP attorney or something. I don't know.
Oh.
So who else needs to be a panelist?
I think Margie just dropped off for some reason, but I'm sure she's back. But Jane Ann Gifford does.
Hondo,
I don't see her on the list. Is she,
it's Jane Ann.
Would you have it by her email, which is L-T?
Okay, I'm sorry. I see the.
Can you guys hear me? This is Margie.
Yep, now we can.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you see me?
Nope.
Nope.
No.
We saw your hand for a minute, but that's all.
Yeah, I'm, I don't know why. I don't think I did anything on my end. Ron, can you check and see if I'm listed?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Tanda
Mhm.
Radawans
There
also
I
needs
go. Now I
promoted.
just got it in.
You're promoted, you're a panelist, so who else needed, who else needed to be a panelist? There you are.
Tanda.
Yeah.
Tanda Radhawan.
The other one.
MoCo Board of Commissioners.
Yes, so
Okay.
the one TR, Tanda Radhawan, and then the MB, that's kind of orange, Monroe County Board of Commissioners. And then Jane Ann, it's a purple Jane Ann.
Okay, so I got that one, Jane Ann.
Yep, Jane
Okay.
Ann. Promote her.
Yeah, they must have signed on using the link and not the invitation as a panelist. So,
That might be me. I might have sent it totally, I did send them the link, and so.
yeah,
I
there was a
wonder-
link that was sent out to the email that for the panelists. And if you use the link that you normally get in with, you will not be a panelist, you'll be an attendee, and you won't be able to say anything.
Now,
Well-
when you can promote them, right?
Yeah,
It looks like
I just
yeah.
promoted everybody. So if
Gotcha.
there's anybody else that needs promoted, let me know.
I
Tanda?
don't see, yeah, Tanda, I think she's no longer listed as a, I don't see her listed as an attendee. I see,
If you can see them on the screen, then basically they've been promoted. Just let me know who else needs to be promoted.
Catherine, will you look? I don't see Tanda listed as an attendee.
I think she
had-
might have dropped off to use the other link.
Yeah, she had been until just a second ago, and I think I would concur with Mr. Levitt. She's probably trying the other link. There she
There
is.
she
She's
is.
coming in as a panelist now.
Yeah.
Yay.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. It is great to see everybody. Wow. And just thank you all for being here. I am so excited.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
guys
for
for
having
coming.
us.
Yes. And hello, Ron, and thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. The recording has started. We got the closed captioning at 12 o'clock my time, 1 o'clock your time. I'm gonna throw up the technical tips. And then that will be the end of me talking unless I'm needed. And then, what I'm trying to say, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay.
So we got another 3 minutes according to my
Yeah.
timepiece.
Do you guys know how many RSVPs you had? Do you remember? I saw quite a few acceptances coming through.
Yeah, there were some that came in this morning. I think there were around 20 of them. Unfortunately, I would have to go and check my email now, but I don't want to leave.
No,
So
no.
after everything starts, I will go and double check to see any people that came in last minute, I'm trying to say, and give them the link to get in. There was some that came in this morning.
Right. And then the other thing too is that I'll be watching my emails as well to let other people in, because what we find is a lot of people, they forget to register and they just jump on the link. So those numbers may not be very accurate, but just like Ron is monitoring his emails, I'll be monitoring mine as well. So we'll let people in as we
Okay.
see them.
Now I just got a text message from Lee Jones that says she needs to be let in. Is she in? Lee's in. I see you
I'm
there.
here.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't think Penny is.
Penny Giffens is listed as an attendee and she needs to be promoted to panelist, please.
Okay, I just promoted her to panelist.
Thank you.
So do we have everybody now?
I'm not seeing any attendees. I'm not seeing anybody in the attendee list who should be a panelist.
Oh, we got some people in the chat. I forgot to promote, hold on a second. I forgot to promote Tammy to host. Okay.
Oh, you forgot me, Ron.
Got a lot of fingers in the pie here. So, okay, now Tam, you can see the chat, right?
Yes, I can. Thank
Okay,
you.
so you can handle the chat. My clock tells me it's time. You want to give people another minute? Or do you want to get going?
Well, let's give it, we can get going because I think if there's anybody else, if they contact Margie through text, she can let us know, and then we'll go from there.
Right. So I want to welcome all of you here, and a big welcome from Monroe County government and city of Bloomington. We have representatives here from Monroe County government, from township government, from our courts, from some community partners that work with our courts. And our goal today is, one, to introduce ourselves, but overall to tell you how we have used some local collaboration to help humans. So we have used an interlocal cooperation statute, and we have used a statute that allows for community justice mediation centers to be developed. And we've used our relationships and partnerships to get rental assistance money to individuals who need it through township government. And also to use some of our food and beverage tax dollars to get to businesses who employ people who probably without this assistance would be on the margins and might end up being homeless or might end up being unemployed. So we're going to start off by having our county commissioners, our 3 members of our Monroe County Board of Commissioners, and one of our township trustees talk about how they use the interlocal cooperation agreement and other tools to get dollars to people, to get financial resources to people. Then we're also going to have one of our circuit court judges and some community partners that she's worked with to talk to you about how they've used tools available to prevent evictions, to try to do their best to prevent evictions, and the programs that they've developed. So I'm a county attorney, and I work with the county commissioners, and I help put some of these things together. I am going to step out of the way and turn it over first to Julie Thomas, and then the other commissioners and Kim Alexander. And then when they're done talking, they're going to turn it over to Judge Stafford and her team. And at the end, we'll have some time for questions and answers if you guys have any. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Julie Thomas, who is the president of our Monroe County Board of Commissioners, to kick off that part.
And thank you so much, Ms. Rice, and thank you for organizing us. We want to thank the consortium for inviting us to be here today. It's really an honor and a pleasure. I am Julie Thomas, and I serve as president of the Board of Monroe County Commissioners. This is my 9th year as a commissioner in serving the community in this capacity. This is the first all-female Board of Commissioners in Indiana, by the way. Yes, I will ask you to cast your mind back to February, March of 2020. As much uncertainty as we have about COVID today, there was a great deal of uncertainty then. We were unclear of how it spread. There was no vaccine, treatments were limited, and some were very sketchy. Remember when we were told that masks didn't work and we wiped down our groceries when we came back from the store? The commissioners, as the executive and legislative branch of county government, faced many, many challenges in this time. With little information coming from the federal government at that time, residents turned to us, and we had to make a number of difficult decisions to protect our community. Whenever possible, we moved our employees to remote work. We closed our buildings to public visitors except by appointment. But more importantly, beyond these workplace decisions, we participated with other community leaders to provide accurate information and guidance to keep our residents safe. We ended up meeting 7 days a week on the phone, of course, with legal staff, emergency management, and our health department to help us shape our local response. We also met regularly with officials from Indiana University, the city, IU Health Bloomington Hospital. This was a collaborative effort that was unique to Monroe County. Our hospital administrator says that all of the other hospitals didn't have this kind of collaborative effort. We worked with the fiduciary arm of county government, the county council, to help develop and implement solutions, because obviously we needed money to do many of these things. In addition to the cycle of information gathering, crisis response, and decision-making, we funded a number of social services with a focus on things like food distribution to meet emergency needs. And we even rolled up our sleeves and worked and distributed food at the local food bank and food pantry. But mainly what we're here to talk about today is the fact that there were businesses that closed because of COVID, and residents were suffering from this sudden economic downturn. We had to do two things. We had to identify needs and we had to get creative. And that's what we did. And I'm really proud of our county government. I can't tell you how proud I am. Commissioner Githens is going to share our efforts regarding local businesses. And then Commissioner Jones is going to explain how we work to provide direct assistance, utilizing our fabulous township trustees to support our local residents. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. I'm Penny Githens, another one of the Monroe County Commissioners. I don't have the length of experience that either of the other two commissioners have, but it's my privilege at this point to serve Monroe County residents. You all know the history of COVID in our state. On March 23rd, 2020, Governor Holcomb issued a stay-at-home order for all non-essential travel and businesses to help deter the spread of COVID-19. That was preceded a week earlier by the closing of all bars and restaurants. It didn't take us long to see that businesses in our community were hurting. Not only were employees not drawing a paycheck, but many businesses were facing the possibility of permanently closing their doors. We knew the loss of income could lead to mortgage foreclosures and evictions. So we decided, as Commissioner Thomas said, that we needed to do something quickly to keep people going. Back in 2017, the Monroe County Council had authorized a 1% food and beverage tax. The proceeds from the tax were split between the city of Bloomington and the Monroe County government. The money allocated to the county government was to go toward our convention center or to promote tourism and economic development. We, meaning the Board of Commissioners, made the decision to use some of our food and beverage tax money to keep county tourism businesses going so that they would still be in business after the pandemic was over. And we hope that's soon at this point, like all of you. This was separate from the PPP loans businesses could obtain through banks or the CARES money, which became available later. So after getting approval from the Monroe County Council and the Food and Beverage Tax Advisory Commission, we announced that grants, and I want to stress that these were grants, would be available to non-urban businesses that could show they were negatively impacted by the sudden lack of tourism. This was later expanded to include 2 nonprofit organizations inside of Bloomington, again, that are related to tourism. Applicants were required to complete an application form, and each applicant was interviewed by one of the county commissioners. And we either recommended to fund them fully or in part, or to deny it. We ended up providing grants to 33 separate entities, giving out a total of just a little under $400,000. And our grants ranged from $146.71 to $65,000. So I want to take a minute and tell you about a few of the grantees. As you know, we're home to the Indiana University. I heard from several businesses which were doing weddings, from event venues to caterers to DJs, that about half of their wedding business comes from IU graduates who return here to get married. Of course, with COVID, weddings, graduation, and birthday parties and business dinners were canceled or significantly delayed, leaving these businesses with absolutely no income. So as they were planning about how they would function when they reopened, event venues went in portable hand sanitizing stations and air purifiers. They also needed money just to pay their employees. They still had things like their landscaping and whatnot to take care of. Restaurants suddenly had to purchase takeout containers. One dog sitter, and who imagines a dog sitter being involved in tourism, right? But one dog sitter I spoke to said that most of her business came from people visiting Lake Monroe who wanted someone to take care of their pet while they spent the day boating on the lake, or after they had involved their pet in their wedding. Bars and restaurants also suffered a severe loss of income, as did our Airbnbs. Wonder Lab, which is a hands-on science museum for children and one of the nonprofits we supported, had no one coming through their doors, but still had animals to care for, meaning staff was needed, and the heat had to stay on while they created online activities to keep young minds engaged. So these grants are just one of the ways our local government was able to help local businesses and people. And we hope the grants made a difference to at least some of the people in our community and kept them housed and kept them fed. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Commissioner Jones, I think we'll talk about that interlocal agreement that provided assistance to dollars to people to pay the rent. Commissioner Jones? I think you're muted. You might want to,
Thank you.
yeah.
My
got it.
dogs are always a big danger when I'm unmuted. Thank you. My name is Lee Jones. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Commissioners. I was first elected commissioner in 2018, and before that spent 6 years on the county council. So I've made my way around county government a bit. Bloomington, of course, during the pandemic, saw a rising number of homeless people, which wasn't surprising. We do offer a number of services, and surrounding counties don't so much. So a lot of people who were in trouble made their way here. Sometime, and I'm afraid that over this whole pandemic, my entire timeline has just kind of mushed together, and I'm not exactly sure when things happened. But sometime during the summer of 2020, a number of homeless started camping in one of the city parks, and businesses were complaining about this. So eventually the mayor had the police run them all off, which caused a whole lot of community concern. In the meantime, it looked like, well, it certainly did not seem that things are getting much better. And of course, we weren't sure how long the eviction moratorium would last. And we started worrying that evictions were going to really exacerbate the whole situation with the homeless. When we got the CARES money, we were trying to figure out how we could actually use that, get that money to people who were truly in need and help them manage to stay afloat. After having thought about it a bit, we realized we actually had a ready-made system in the township trustees, whose responsibility is to provide aid to people who are struggling financially. It wasn't exactly clear how to get money to them. So we did talk to the council. They were very supportive of us. So we went to the trustees to discuss this idea, and they also liked it. So they formed a Township Trustees Association to kind of have an umbrella that handled the money. And they appointed someone as treasurer who basically gave out the money, let the county know if more money was needed, made regular reports to the commissioners and council. So in order to in order to make all of this happen.
Yeah, I'm having a problem promoting.
Hold on one sec. So Ron, do you need us for a sec, or you haven't?
No, I just muted him. We're sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
We ended up signing an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with the township trustees, which was the vehicle which allowed us to get this money to them. Most of the money went to the two townships that split Bloomington between them. There's another township just west of Bloomington that's rather densely populated, and a certain amount of money went to them also. The more rural townships did not seem to need nearly as much as the more densely populated ones. The one problem with this whole program was that an awful lot of people know nothing about township trustees. They don't know what they do or who they are or whether or not they have one. And so we started announcing this program at every single one of our weekly meetings. There was a weekly press conference of all of the community partners who were collaborating. And it was announced there every week. And eventually we had to restart the program. That was, well, I guess I don't remember exactly when that was, but it had to do with the state, and we just kind of managed to continue it on. And that's, well, basically, we did everything we could to advertise the trustees, to make it easy for people to find where they were, who they were. And it does seem to have helped quite a bit, which I think Kim Alexander, who is Bloomington trustee, so she handled a lot of this, can tell you more about how they managed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Hi, I'm Kim Alexander, the Bloomington Township trustee, and thank you for having us here today. Like Lee said, the trustees in Indiana are statutorily obligated to assist those in financial need. And we were, like everyone else, you know, at that time, like Lee said, I kind of forget the dates and what happened when, and some of people saying things have brought back memories of that. But at the time, the commissioners, when we got together regarding this interlocal agreement, the trustees all got together and decided this was probably a good idea, because as townships, we couldn't participate directly in the CARES funding. We had to participate through our county government. So that was one of the reasons we chose to engage in the interlocal agreement. And since it was a legal way to share financial resources, it was also a way of highlighting to the community that local units of government could work together. And it was a way to provide additional assistance that the township would otherwise have been limited to due to our township guidelines, which are approved by our board. And we have you know, limits on how much we will award to a particular participant or particular resident. So the key players were the township trustees and the county commissioners, with the appropriation by the county council. And in the beginning, I think, like Julie said, we just had no idea what this was going to look like. I mean, I think we were all kind of just scared and wondering what was going to happen. And so but we were fairly certain that this pandemic, this COVID-19, would impact our community in negative ways. And like I said, the trustees are statutorily obligated to provide for basic necessities, which includes shelter. These normally, so when the trustees got together, we decided that Bloomington, we used the ALICE, maybe some of you are familiar with the ALICE figures from the United Way, and we used that as a guide to how much money we would allocate to each township. And Bloomington and Perry are the two largest, Perry being really much larger. So those are the figures that we used. And even in good times or before the pandemic, you know, Monroe County struggles with poverty and those that are above the poverty level, but working poor, I guess you would call it. Bloomington Township, these are 2018 numbers that came in on the ALICE report last year. Total households in my township, 13,554. 67% of those households are ALICE and poverty households. So it doesn't take long to realize that with the pandemic on top of that, it wasn't going to be a very pretty picture. So we were able to utilize the interlocal agreement. I think Lee mentioned we started, I think it was last year, and I don't remember the beginning date, but it was through the end of the year, and then we renewed it again at the end of the year through July 1st, and then we revised it again through the end of this year. So that's what's been going on. Originally, it was for $100,000, and it was renewed again in July for another $100,000. And to date, we have dispersed almost $120,000. And the average assistance to each individual or household was around $609. And that's $609 above and beyond what our township guidelines provided for. So So if a one-person household could receive $650, that meant they got $1,250. There weren't any limitations or requirements other than, we just went through the normal process of filling out the township application, which this is all prescribed by Indiana statute. I mean, these applications are State Board of Accounts approved. And we just went through the normal process. And if a person though had a bill that was a rental, they were past due in their rent or whatever due to COVID, we were able to assist them. And how it worked logistically, we chose a 3-person committee, myself and 2 other trustees, to approve these, meet once a month and approve these applications before they would be sent to the commissioners for their reimbursement to the township. So it was pretty simple in the way that we did that. And then let's see. I think that in general, it is going really well. I mean, it's smooth. It was, like Lee said, I mean, the township trustees were like the most logical venue for dispersing these funds. And they were very helpful in getting the word out. And I think a lot of people became a lot more aware of township trustees. But I mean, we already have a vast network. We already are in communication and work with all the nonprofit agencies in Bloomington anyway. So I think that word of mouth and that sort of thing got things out, but it was very helpful to have the extra promotion that they did. So I guess, in summary, it's been a really great partnership. And I think that there have been, probably not that many times that the county and the county government and the trustees have been able to work together like this. And I think it also promoted us to seeing the possibilities for other community problems that we have, like homelessness, because after that, we all came together to work on the housing insecurity issue, and we're still working on it in Bloomington. So I mean, it's been a really positive experience, and I really appreciate the fact that we were able to do this with the county government. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And so, the commissioners and the townships were able, I think, as they explained today, to be able to use this interlocal cooperation statute that is available to any governmental entity in Indiana to work together and to take funding from the county to put it in the hands of the township and deliver it to people so that they could get rental assistance. That was one way we worked together to try to prevent people from ending up on the street or ending up without housing. Now, obviously, some people do end up in housing and then are facing eviction. So we've got Judge Stafford here to talk with you, and she's got team members that she'll pass it off to have them share how they work together at the court level when evictions are, pending, and they're basically trying to prevent the evictions from happening. So Judge Stafford, do you want to take over?
Sure, I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Well, I really appreciate the invite from the consortium and from the commissioners, and Ms. Rice, thank you all very much. It's a pleasure to be here as one of the 9 members of the judicial branch of government in Monroe County. I became a judge pretty recently, just about 2.5 years ago. So I like to joke that I'm a toddler judge instead of a baby judge. I became judge in the beginning of 2019 before the pandemic, and quickly learned that Thursday afternoons were the most hideous time of the week, because that's when I hear evictions and damages cases. And how evictions work in Indiana, many of you may know this, but I'm going to give a quick primer just in case. It's a 2-step process. There are 2 parts to the hearing. So first, there's a hearing called the possessory hearing, and that's what we'll commonly call the eviction hearing. And that's when the judge just determines whether the tenant has to move out. Then about 60 and now maybe 80 days later, there's another hearing called the damages hearing. And that there has to be a difference in the time that those are set so that the landlord has time to comply with the security deposit statute in Indiana, the 45 days to give notice to the tenant of what they would like to deduct from the tenant's security deposit. So the second hearing, the damages hearing, is to determine who owes whom what for late rent, damage to the unit, attorney fees, etc. And I hear evictions on Thursdays at 1 and damages on Thursdays at 2. This is an open invitation. Any of you who would like to sit in on court, all those hearings are public. If you contact me through this group, I'd be happy to get you a Zoom invite and you can watch evictions and damages anytime you want. You are cordially invited. Soon after becoming a judge, I was talking with a sister judge at that time, Judge Judith Benkart, who's no longer on the bench, but who was fantastically helpful in beginning this program. She and I are from different political parties, and I think that helped strengthen the basis of our organization. We were able to convene and meet with a whole group of people from Monroe County, and that includes many of the partners that you see here today. And I'm going to just briefly name them, and if you would kind of wave as I go around, and then as soon as I'm done here in a couple minutes, I will shut up and let you introduce yourselves in more detail and talk about your role in the project. First of all, I'd like to introduce Liz Granat, the Executive Director of CJAM, the Community Justice and Mediation Center, and Jane Ann Gifford, who is the Landlord-Tenant Coordinator and Mediator for CJAM. They provide the mediations for our housing and eviction prevention project. Next, I'll introduce the attorneys. We have here two different organizations who help provide legal counsel for the group, and that is the Pro Bono Indiana through our District 10 local division, and that's Deborah Davis. So Deborah, wave and say hi. And then we have through Justice Unlocked, which is actually a nonprofit law firm in town that offers sliding scale legal services to people who may be I'm going to say too wealthy, but I don't mean wealthy, to qualify for legal services, but who still can't afford a $300 or $400 an hour private attorney. And that's Ash Kulak. And Ash, thank you so much. And Gabe Levy has been a volunteer for us as a HEP attorney, and we are so grateful for his help. We have kind of three legs of the stool, and the third leg is perhaps the most critical, and that is the function that Tonda Radawan serves. And she was formerly with SIHO, the Southern Indiana Housing Opportunities Group, but they have since kind of disbanded. So she's really doing this independently and through contract with CJAM. She provides social service referrals and helps coordinate tenants and landlords to where they might need to go next to help get the resources and the funding to really try to help people stay housed. And I just see we've been joined here by Diane Walker, who is our local executive director of the District 10 Pro Bono project. So thank you as well. HEP is the name of the project, and it's the Housing Eviction Prevention Project. And the goal is to provide those three services to people going through eviction cases. So legal advice first and foremost, so that people know their rights and their responsibilities. Maybe they're from another state, and in that state you could withhold rent if there was a problem with the rental unit. You can't do that really in Indiana. And so having a chance to talk to an attorney and figure out what you really need to do is really critical. Then that second step of mediating with the landlord allows them to try to come to a mutual arrangement that really can benefit both of them. And we found that to be really helpful during a lot of the time that we had an eviction moratorium, because I couldn't evict somebody, but they might agree to voluntarily move out in exchange for other considerations that would benefit both the landlord and the tenant. I really want to emphasize here that evictions are bad for both the landlords and the tenants. It's certainly bad for tenants, and we all understand why. They might end up unhoused and living in a local park or couch surfing, and all of those things are A, unsafe, B, terrible for children who are going to experience transience in their schooling and a whole host of other problems that impact our school systems. But it really is a huge exposure risk for COVID when people are sharing housing and are overcrowded in their housing situations. But on the other hand, evictions are also terrible for landlords. Landlords have a tremendous cost when they have to turn over units. They have to have marketing costs, housekeeping costs, cleaning costs, junk hauling costs. And it's very expensive for them to have to evict someone mid-lease when they're not expecting to, and to try to fill that spot. So I have had, frankly, at least as many, if not more, small-time mom and pop landlords in my court crying over the last 2 years as I have had tenants, because their hands have been tied with a moratorium and they haven't been able to get the income that they're relying on to live. And so this has really been tragic for everyone involved. And I'm so glad that we have the services of HEP. I no longer dread Thursday afternoons as much. They're still not my favorite day of the week. I've got to be completely honest. And I hear high conflict family cases much of the rest of the time. So that'll put that in perspective on how hard evictions and damages are. But I'm truly grateful for the collaboration of all of these different local groups and agencies coming together. having something like this in the courts is something that I think every county in Indiana would want to do. And I'll tell you a real simple reason beyond the humanitarian aspects of it. Financially, it makes sense. I was asked when I was running for office, what do you do about the court's $8 million plus budget and how do you keep it from growing? Well, the only possible answer to that in a realistic long-term way is to promote and use alternative dispute resolution, such as mediation, to help resolve disputes so that each judge can handle more cases, with those cases going through alternative dispute resolution, and thus we have those efficiencies. If we keep hearing as judges every single case that comes before us, we're simply going to be stuck needing another court every few years with population growth. So I really promote that alternative dispute resolution and heavy use of it to help keep those costs down for taxpayers. So consider it from that perspective as well. And with that, let me turn it briefly over to the, let's see here, who wants to start? Liz and Jane Ann, are you interested in starting? All right, I'll turn it over.
Liz? Okay, so Liz, would you like to say anything or do you want me to take it away? Take it away. All right. Well, so Judge Stafford spoke briefly about gathering everyone in 2019, and we began, I think, volunteering as mediators in April of 2019, and then spent a good deal of time once we were funded and getting our bearings and understanding how we could be most effective. I would say that as a mediator, what we have observed is that being virtual on Zoom is much more effective. It allows the judge to have much more control of the resources in the courtroom. And so the volume of legal advice that's been received, as well as mediation services and TANDA in the social services referral has, I think, gone up significantly, because everyone is captive on the screen and in breakout rooms, and we're able to be much more effective and efficient. You know, our goals in mediation are sort of threefold. Our highest priority is to hope that a mediation will result in someone to remain in the property with a payment plan. Our secondary option is a voluntary move out, so there isn't eviction on their record and they're able to find housing elsewhere. And then the third is, you know, very undesirable, is that our mediation fails, and then that is thrown back into Judge Stafford or Judge Crothy's court as a contested hearing, which is much more time consuming for them. So we want people to feel empowered in coming to their own decisions. The moratorium did present a lot of challenges in terms of ensuring that there was no harm done in mediation, because, you know, people could not be evicted during the moratorium, but often they were being pressured by the other party in terms of escalating past due rent and things. And so trying to make sure that the outcome was the best for both parties was challenging for our volunteer mediators. So, you know, we are grateful to be a part of the program, grateful that you're interested in hearing about it. You know, mediation isn't a solution for everything, but it is a key part of this program. And, you know, I don't know what we'd do without our legal advice. I mean, we're not prepared to provide that, but the tenants come in much better prepared for mediation. And, you know, I'm happy to answer any other questions. I don't know if you all understand what mediation is, but I'm sure you do. So I'm going to turn it back over to Tanda or Ash or whoever would like to speak more.
Let me just do a quick segue if I can. Just for the uninitiated, mediation is an alternative dispute resolution tool that is neutral and non-binding until the parties sign an agreement. And the settlement positions that people take in mediation are confidential from the judge. So I can't know who offered what in mediation. So it makes people more free to go out on a limb to offer a term of settlement, which is a great and wonderful thing. One of my favorite parts about mediation is that self-determination aspect that Ms. Gifford talked about, where it's really a solution that works best for the tenant and the landlord. I will never know as a judge, even after an hour of testimony and evidence from each, what the different factors are that make certain solutions better for them, the way that they'll know themselves. And it's much better for them to come to their own agreement than for me to impose one. So with that, let me turn it over next to the attorneys. So I don't know, between Ms. Davis, Mr. Levy, and Mr. Kulak and Ms. Walker, who of you would like to start? But I'll turn it over to you.
I might do a sort of segue too. There is not a right in Indiana for legal assistance if it's a civil case. There is if there's a criminal case. But there are very important interests involved in civil cases as well, including, of course, whether you're going to continue to have an apartment, whether you're going to be able to continue to have income from the business that you're using, and there's no right to that. The great thing about HEP, aside from the mediation and the incredible cooperation and coordination that we've had, is that having an attorney for both sides is something that is really rare and something that really equalizes the balance of power, because so often landlords are able to afford an attorney. Not all of them, as she mentioned, the mom and pop landlords, just don't have the money to do that. But it does equalize the balance of power so that people are able to go into mediation and have the tools that they need in order to be able to come to a good agreement. And that's something that's rare, and that's something that we're really proud of here. And it's down to Judge Stafford and Judge Crothy that we're able to do that. So just wanted to lead in with that.
Brainstorming with the people that we talk with on the Wednesdays in Judge Crothy's court and Thursdays in Judge Stafford's court can help them. It prompts them to maybe think outside the box on their own situation. Basically, they, and I mean both landlords and tenants, certainly the tenant has the onus on that. Do you still owe money to the landlord? And, do you have a plan? To the landlords, it's, any chance of waiting longer, any chance of, getting your money, but putting it off a little bit. I think that is a valuable tool. And I also think from what Diane was talking about, anything that tries to make the situation a more level playing field is going to help these parents who are the renters and who may have kids, or is also going to help the landlords who are saying, I can't pay for my medicine and food if I don't get the rent from the house that we rent out. They're very real problems for everybody. And so I'm glad that we are, we talked about how the mediators are neutral, but the attorneys, we are not neutral, but we can go in and talk to either side. And so that either side could profit from having some help, because some landlords, many do have attorneys, but many don't. And then the tenants generally don't. So it is a good opportunity to help a lot of people who really need it at a crucial time.
Yeah, so I can give a brief overview of what I kind of do. I'm one of the attorneys. I work at Justice Unlocked. I joined August of 2020. Jamie Sutton, the executive director of Justice Unlocked, was part of HEP when it started. And then I joined Justice Unlocked August of 2020. So I kind of joined right in the middle. But I really enjoy it. And I think the services that I provide as an attorney are not just joining initial hearings. I think what Judge Stafford was mentioning is that on Thursdays, and also in Judge Crothy's court on Wednesdays, the eviction and damages hearings are all initials. So it's an opportunity for a lot of cases to be set at once. And the parties can either say they have an agreement, after successful mediation, or if they already had an agreement to begin with, or they get reset for a contested hearing in the future. If there's time, sometimes it's for the same day, but most of the time, if there's 3 cases set every 15 minutes, there's not enough time. So I help give people legal advice. They show up in the door, or virtually, and they get put in my breakout room and I give them advice about their situation. Usually I ask, why are you here for an eviction, or why are you here for a damages hearing? And they kind of just say what they need to say. And I spot the legal issues, figure out what's going on in their case, and give them advice. That's one part. Sometimes we get notified in Indiana, there are emergency eviction hearings, which is when, either a tenant or a landlord can file one, but most of the time I've seen landlords file them. It's usually for unreasonable property damage is basically the standard. Something really dangerous is happening. We get notified of when emergency evictions are happening, and we, get asked if we're available. I tend to try to go to those because they get set. If the defendant is served properly, they get set within 3 business days. That's not enough time for anybody to get counsel. So I try to join those, and usually I give people limited representation. So I tell them, I can't be your attorney from here on out, but I can be your attorney for today. And usually it does help level the playing field when most landlords have attorneys there. They know the standard. They know how to put on the evidence of what waste is, because that's the standard for a landlord emergency. And the tenant just goes, I don't know what you're talking about. So I think that's another part of what we do. And I think as well, I get requests to call limited clients. I usually just take tenants because I have a contract with Indiana Legal Services where I do tenant defense, and I don't want to have any conflicts. I had a conflict at one point, so I just try to take tenants. But I give legal advice before the person goes to court. So sometimes they call the number that's listed and it goes to Tonda, and Tonda sends me a message saying, so-and-so wants to talk to you about their eviction before they go to court. And it helps them figure out, right when they get to court, they can tell the judge, I've already talked to someone, I know what I want to do. So it also helps streamline the process that way. And then the last thing, sometimes I help people with filings. So there are a lot of, the small claims rules are very simple for attorneys to understand, but I don't think they're very simple for people who are not attorneys to understand, especially because sometimes I have to read, there's some of the rules I have to read several times to kind of understand what they mean. I don't think most people would want to do that. So I help people file, or at least give them the resources that they can file on their own. A big example is when there's a default hearing. So if, for example, a tenant just doesn't show up to their eviction hearing or their damages hearing, a default gets entered. And the standard under the small claims rules is that they have to have had some sort of good cause to miss the hearing. So I give the person advice, but they don't really know what to do next. They're like, okay, so do I just call the court? No, you gotta write something. You have to write something and, have to send it not only to the court, but a copy to the opposing party, all of that other kind of thing that, those things that people don't really think about because they don't know the rules very well. So I help sometimes Pro Se Plus write the filing for them, send it to them and tell them, this is where you need to send it. This is where you need to send it. This is how you have to file your certificate of service, make sure it's served, etc. So that's also another part of what I do with HEP, is to also help with filings and when people really don't know what to do next if they missed a hearing. I think, speaking of, I think a lot of people were talking about evictions for non-payment. I think the 3 biggest issues, especially now when the moratoria, the several eviction moratoria are now over, definitively over. But before, it was this big question mark, especially with the CDC moratorium, which basically required tenants to file or sign a sworn paper that basically said they did all of these things to qualify as a protected person. That was a lot of that the CDC put on tenants that they had to do, especially for tenants who didn't really know that it existed. And the moratorium had a moving goalpost, as one attorney pointed out, and I really like the way he put it, but a moving goalpost of when it expired, because it was supposed to expire, I believe, October or November. It was supposed to expire in 2020, and then it just moved all the way up through 2021. And we didn't really have an idea of when it would expire and what that would mean. And it was very difficult in those periods of time where, especially there was this push for, okay, it's going to be one last time, July 31st of 2021 is when it's going to expire. And so it's very difficult to give people advice with, well, I only have to tell you what the loss is right now. And the law says it expires on the 31st. And people make decisions based on that. And then of course it was extended on August 3rd and people wanted to go back on it. And it's very difficult to try to tell someone, well, if you committed to a move out date when you thought that it was expiring, sorry, tough luck, you are in a contract. You know, you have a written mediated agreement. That's a contract that goes above and beyond your rights under the CDC order. Of course, that doesn't account for how I think 3 or 4 days later, the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional, which then changed everything because there was one set of initial hearings the week before that where people were, you know, agreeing to voluntarily surrender by October 4th, thinking that they had those rights. And that was helpful for them because the next week, boom, it's unconstitutional. Those rights are gone. So that has been a struggle, the several amount of moratoria and the moving goalposts of when they expire and how people qualify. Because I think one of the biggest hurdles was rental assistance, but it's also a good benefit. And that was my segue into rental assistance has been extremely helpful for tenants and for landlords who accept it. I think some landlords have been nervous about what rental assistance means, but the more they learn about it, the more they realize your entire lease could get paid. And I laugh only because I think it makes sense for people to collaborate and really take this seriously that I believe it's the IHCDA, I don't know what the acronym stands for, but is offering the Indiana Emergency Rental Assistance under the IERA to tenants who have experienced an event that has made them unable to pay rent. And that's a lot of people in the state of Indiana, a lot of people in Monroe County. So it's been really helpful for people to apply for rental assistance and get their 6 months of their 1-year lease paid off or up to a full year paid off. And then the tenant doesn't have to worry about, do I have to move out? The landlord doesn't have to worry about, am I going to get rent this month? So it's been a really helpful tool for people, especially because I know the trustee has helped people as well go to get rental assistance and even also utility assistance, because sometimes emergency eviction hearings occur because say we're in February and the water gets shut off and the pipes are about to burst. You know, that could be an emergency for the landlord. So if someone helps, you know, if the trustee helps get their utilities paid, that doesn't get turned off and then they don't have to worry about that emergency situation. So I think I spoke for a long time, but I wanted to go over everything. So if any of the other attorneys wanted to chime in, feel free to do so.
I'm Gabe Levy. I'm one of the other HEP attorneys. I think, you know, Ash nailed it. Really, for a lot of the unrepresented parties, what we do is that we'll just talk with them about their situation and really help work them through what options they have. And for somebody that's either scared or frustrated, you know, that can really help them make a much more educated, I guess, strategic move into how to help remedy their current situation.
Let me go ahead and turn things over to Tonda Radawan, who represents the third leg of our stool, kind of the referrals and the communication with other agencies. Her knowledge has been incredible. Her depth of experience in this area is really helpful. But as we leave the attorney leg, I just wanted to say they also do a great job of identifying counterclaims. And that is an extremely powerful tool for tenants and landlords in this case, is that if someone comes into court with unclean hands, is the way we like to say it. In other words, if they haven't done everything exactly the way they're supposed to, the tenant or the landlord may have a counterclaim, and that is incredibly beneficial. So let me turn it over to you, Ms. Radawan.
Thank you very much. I also realized I was in the middle of sending some information in the chat. I'll go ahead and describe what that is shortly after I'm done speaking. So that analogy of a three-legged stool, I think, is a good one. One is because the idea is that it will be balanced and level and provide stability. Part of the reason why we started this project back in early 2019 was, I think other people have brought that up too, is to not only level the playing field, but help make the processes more efficient and communicate the resources that that might be available to the landlords and tenants here in Monroe County. One part that the kind of shifting back to Judge Stafford and that isn't really brought up as much when we're talking about the program is all of us here have probably interacted a lot with forms and guidelines and government publications. I think that standardizing some of the court forms, making those court forms more efficient, was a resource that's not talked about as much. There's also a summons packet that was developed by the judges that, along with resources, a flyer for our program and other resources that I'm not sure are available in other of the counties here. I know the consortium has hosted this, and we're talking to people that are outside of Monroe County. It might be something that your community is already doing, but what we found and what we stand by is, or at least I say it a lot, I can't speak for everyone, but the best decisions are informed decisions. The more information that you have at your disposal, the better you can make decisions in your life. That would be tenants, landlords, courts, anyone. And so what the judges have done is they've presented a letter that goes out to any tenant that is a litigant in an eviction case. Not only does it talk about the resources available through Community Justice and Mediation Center, resources through our project, but also talks about some more common terms that people might be, that they might see, or other alternatives that they could have towards eviction. I'm not sure, Judge Stafford, if you wanted to talk more about that. I just, being a forms person, somebody that interacts a lot with publications, I think having that material to the tenants and the landlords has been really helpful. So I wanted to mention that. Ash also talked a bit about the CDC eviction prevention declaration. Up until August, when that was no longer an option, a lot of our attorneys were spending quite a bit of time explaining what that is, and helping those tenants that qualified for that be able to fill that out and provide it to their landlords. Having that resource and the ability to fill that out even right before their court setting meant that people were able to stay housed. Now, obviously, that isn't something that we have right now, or that we have anymore, but the ability to send somebody to a township trustee if they qualify has definitely been a great resource, along with the emergency rental assistance that was brought up before. Those are still options available to everybody, not just those of us here on the call in Monroe County. If you're in the state of Indiana and you need emergency rental assistance, I strongly urge that you look into that and apply. Landlords can apply for their tenants. It really is a way and means to pay those arrears and even pay forward-facing rent. And so those are resources that are available. The funding is still available. It does surprise me still, as I talk to everybody that shows up at their eviction hearing or shows up at their initial damages hearing. Some of them have not heard about the rental assistance program, and they get that information at that time. Some people have not yet heard about the township trustees program, or maybe they don't know that there is that additional money through the interlocal that they may qualify for. And so part of what I do when I'm talking to people after their hearing is connect them with resources. I think the most important aspect, and unfortunately one of the missing elements, not just in our community, but those all over the state of Indiana and the nation, is that lack of housing, the lack of affordable housing, the lack of Section 8 housing for those that have been in those in that position where they've been on the line, they've been qualified, they have a Section 8 voucher. I think that's something that we all can work on, and we all can, do better at. Definitely see those plans in place, the funds being set, federal money coming in through HUD, in order to create new housing and redevelop current housing. But that is one of the hardest parts I think I have about Thursdays and Wednesdays and after hearings is somebody may have gone through this process. They've been able to prevent an eviction on the record. They've worked with a landlord who is willing to work with them on a voluntary move out date to give them more time. But then the challenge is there isn't a place for them to move to. Sometimes it's because there was a prior eviction on the record. Sometimes it has to do with bad credit. It could have to do, there are a lot of reasons why they might not be a likely candidate for new housing. What is the biggest challenge is for those people that have the funds available. They have a voucher and there's just not a unit for them to get into yet. Maybe in 60 days, maybe in 90 days, maybe in 2 months. But for the people that have done everything that they can at their disposal to be able to not be able to get into housing is really a challenge. And I know all of you on this call are aware of it. They're your friends, they're your neighbors, they're your constituents. And I know that at least here in our county, we have resources through the Housing Insecurity Working Group, United Way, City Council, county commissioners. We're really looking at it as a community challenge and goal, and we're moving towards that in a way that that I've been really impressed with. But there still are people that don't have a place to live tonight. They don't have a place to live tomorrow. They might not have a place in a month or two, and those are the people that I'm trying to help connect to resources. We have some wonderful agencies and nonprofits out there that are doing really hard work, and they have been for a long time, to try to connect people to housing. One thing that I'm able to do through this project is provide that referral. If they've come to, if they haven't been able to work out something through mediation and they have a contested hearing, I can provide them information for Indiana Legal Services or other legal service providers or self-help litigation pro se information, so they can be better prepared for that contested hearing. For those people that that might not have heard about a township trustee, or they haven't followed up on Indiana rental assistance, they have that information now that they can move forward on that they might not have had before. We're really hoping to be able to connect with other community resources that might be able to provide better case management for housing. That's one of the goals, at least, that I have for this project through the housing and advocacy end, because I think we're doing great work. That's because of the people that are on your screen right here, putting the time in, many hours, not compensated often for legal and mediation work, but we're not going to be there fully until we can provide a place for those people to land, and that would be housing with a roof over their head. I tend to go on about that part of it. I think a lot of it is because I'm just talking one-on-one with people after they find out they don't have a place to live. Or fortunately, we're talking to them ahead of time. Lots of people are very proactive and they're trying to come up with solutions before they're in court. I'm not sure if those of you are aware, but CJAM provides mediation services well before somebody's in court and encourages it. And that the judge's letter that talks about what you can do now encourages those communications between the landlords and tenants to try to come to a resolution before that hearing altogether. And so we have these pieces in place, and we're certainly dedicated to forwarding this cause. I think that we need to be kind of working together with the others in the community that are here and seeing what we can come up with as far as housing and case management. I'm going to pause though, because I'm not sure what our time frame is here, and I want to make sure that there's enough time for questions and answers. And then maybe hand the speaking back to Margie Rice to see if there was something that you were wanting to do as far as questions and answers.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I think one of the things that Tanda just said was, about working together to connect people with resources. We talked about leveling the playing field. And one of the things that I want to make sure that we hit home for those who are on this call is to realize that every county in Indiana has township trustees. Every county in Indiana has county commissioners and a county council. Every county and their township trustees could enter into an interlocal agreement because there's a statute on the books that lets you do that. We can provide you with an example of our interlocal. We can give you the statutory citations. Every county has judges. Every county has local attorneys. Every county could have in Indiana. Every county could avail themselves and create a organization like RCJAM. That there's a statute on the books that allows you to have a community mediation resource center, and we can also provide you with that statute. So the things that we've done here in Monroe County are available to every single county in the state of Indiana. And one of the things that will get these resources to Tammy and to Ron, and they can forward it to you guys. But one thing we want to make sure that that these aren't tools that are unique to Monroe County. These are things that you could be doing to meet your local needs in your county. It's just the name of the game is collaboration at the local level. So with that in mind, I want to open it up to any attendees here who have questions for our panelists. You could just raise your hand or, and I don't know, Tammy, how you normally do the question and answer session during these things. But again, we'll make our written materials available. I have made some of them available. We'll make sure we get them all available and get them to Tammy so she can get them out to anybody who's interested.
Okay, so and thank you for that. What we had been doing, if people can, because I know as a participant, they may not be able to talk, but if they raise their hand, we could see it. Or if they want to, they can place their questions in the chat, and we can field from there, and also release people to speak from there, because Ron and I are kind of monitoring that chat box. So if you have a question right now, go ahead and put it in the chat box, and then that way Ron and I can see you and work on unmuting your microphone so that you can speak.
Right. And we have the Zoom call till available till 2:30. I think we intended to keep this about an hour and then have some question and answer. So if there aren't questions, we can certainly wrap up. If there are any closing comments from our panelists, we can have that. But we want to make ourselves available to if you're on this call and you end up talking with somebody in your community, think of us, think of all these panelists as resources.
Right.
If you were like, hey, I want my county commissioners to talk to the Monroe County commissioners and figure out how to get creative and come up with agreements.
Right. And actually, I want to thank you all for being here. So if you don't mind, I'll speak for a moment while we wait to see if there's any questions that come up. But I definitely want to thank each and every one of you for being here, and what you're doing down there in Monroe County. I want to see it here in Madison County. And so you all basically volunteering to make your materials, and even today with your time and your willingness to be a resource to all of us. I can say right now for Madison County, I definitely want your help. And I know we did have, I know Judge Happy, he was online, and I think he had to drop off a little early, but he was happy that 1, we were having this, 2, that it's recorded, and 3, that you guys will be available, because just like down there in Monroe County, here in Madison County and throughout Indiana, we're experiencing daily all types of housing crises and crises, and it's not going anywhere. And like you said, we have to collaborate so that we can take care of our residents, because it's homelessness is not good for anybody, not just the family, but it's the whole community. And that's why it takes the whole community for us to figure these things out. But I do have a question with regards to your mediation process. So here in Madison County, and by the way, not only am I the president for the Indiana Consortium of State and Local Human Rights Agencies, I'm actually the Civil and Human Rights Director for the City of Anderson. So I'm a proponent, obviously for fair housing, but just, housing in general, right? And so what I've been seeing is that there's been a lot of landlords, for whatever reasons, would not accept a lot of the money that's been on the table. And I guess there's a whole bunch of reasons why they are not. I don't understand them. But nonetheless, it puts these tenants in a position to whereas once they had no money, they were facing homelessness. Now they're in a situation where they have access to money, but the landlord is not, for whatever reasons, willing to participate and then insist on taking them to eviction courts. And unfortunately, some people are being evicted now, like the judge was saying, like you've got the eviction on your record and so on and so forth. So I guess my question to all of you, are you guys seeing that in your mediation? And then how are you handling that?
Well, so we saw it a lot more in 2019. The rigor of the previous, and Tonda may have a different perspective on this, but the rigor of the previous funding that was coming required a lot of disclosure on the part of the landlords. And if the landlords were perhaps a little sketchy about how they ran their businesses, then it was an exposure for them to accept funding because they potentially could disclose things about their business they would prefer not to. We have seen less of that in 2020 with the new program because the requirements for the landlords are significantly different. Their co-pays on the check, it isn't, if they don't participate, it doesn't matter. The tenant can still get funding. And ultimately the landlord will be paid. We have seen a couple of unique circumstances where the check would not be accepted by the landlord because it was too much and they didn't want to be held accountable for the overage that beyond what was due. And, you know, our response to that as mediators, in this particular case, we didn't really mediate. There was a pro tem judge and it was awkward. But, you know, I have follow-up conversations with landlord attorneys and say, talk to us about why you let that go into court. Why didn't you call CJM to mediate that prior? So through HEP, we've been able to establish the kind of relationships that allow us to ask hard and difficult questions and leverage, you know, some of the deposits we've made. I mean, we do save landlord attorneys some time in the process. Often they don't have to go to contested if we're there. So yeah, we have seen that a little bit, but not to a huge extent in 2021. And Tonda, you may have a different view, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, and actually Judge Stafford had their hand up, and so I don't know if you wanted to speak at that.
Sure. I just wanted to briefly interject, which is that landlords have a duty to mitigate their damages under Indiana law. And I really view accepting rental help as part of that duty to mitigate. In other words, if a landlord says no thank you to IERA, I'm not going to then allow them to come into court and claim that they're out $6,000 for rent, and then I'm not going to award it to them from the tenant. They had their chance and they failed to take it. It's just the same as a landlord having a tenant leave a lease early and then not even trying to relet the apartment. That's not how it works. They have a duty to try to make it better. So with that, Tonda, I'll turn it back to you.
Sure. And I will say that we all, well, I can't, but many of us really wish that all the judges that we were in front of as tenant advocates felt the same way that you do about that. What I'm hearing, and so I guess, to start out, so when somebody needs services, wants or needs services from the Housing Eviction Prevention Project, they call an intake line, and I'm that person that answers the intake line. So I'm getting those calls from a variety of places. It could be that someone saw our flyer in the summons packet, or that they went online and they did a Google search, or they went to find.org, Aunt Bertha, and looked up eviction prevention and got our phone number, or Helping Bloomington Monroe. We're getting a lot of referrals now from the City of Bloomington HAND department, where somebody's calling HAND and HAND is not able to assist with a landlord tenant issue. So we might get the referral. So I'm getting those incoming calls. And also, as in a different capacity, trying to do marketing and outreach for rental assistance. talking to a lot of people that have had some snags. So, so you have a little bit more information that might not come up in the court setting. Some of the tenants are saying that their landlord is property manager, saying they're just not going to mess with it. They don't, it's challenging, the document portal's too hard. Nobody is calling them back to the, the customer service line, and that it's just too much of a hassle. They've already got somebody lined up for that apartment. They don't have confidence that the tenant is going to continue to be able to pay when the rental assistance is up. And they just are not wanting to participate that way because it's too hard and they don't need to. That might be different in some of the other counties, but here in our county, there really is, available rental units don't stay vacant very long here at all. And so there isn't as much impetus for the landlord to be able to do that. Now, I'm also hearing that from tenants where the process and documentation is difficult. I think that that has definitely happened in the past. I think the ICDA and the IERA program coordination are listening to that, and the amount of time that it takes for an application to be completed through the process of review and documentation and that check being paid is becoming smaller. The amount of time is smaller, but it's still like 30 to 45 days. Whereas in the beginning of this process, we were seeing checks come in that maybe had been initiated 5 months ago. And the landlord, as much as they wanted to wait and as much as they might want to work with someone, they're not going to not have that rental income for 5 months without assurances that the check's in the mail. Jane Ann had mentioned, I think earlier on in the program, where the landlord was required to provide a W-9, tax accounting, tax information, and that barrier has been removed. And also some of the attestations have been shifted so the tenants can provide information in a way that's easier for them. But we're still finding and hearing from a lot of people that they got rental assistance approved. They received confirmation that that check payment was on its way, but the landlord needed to move forward for their reasons instead of waiting that week, or in some cases 2 days, for the check to be in their mailbox in order for them to keep their unit. I'm not sure if I answered the question. I kind of went roundabout there. So
no, I mean, you did, and thank you for that. And I know Ash seems like he wants to add something to that, so I'll let him add something to that, and then I'll come back with my other part of the question. Go ahead, Ash. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I wanted to talk a little bit about the rejections of rental assistance because of what I do. I take cases also outside of Monroe County, and there are many, many differences between how landlords handle it in this county versus other counties. And I think the biggest reason why I've seen landlords reject rental assistance is because with the IERA, the Indiana Emergency Rental Assistance, they have to agree to not evict the tenant for the entire period that they are receiving the assistance. Sometimes landlords want to evict for more than just non-payment. Sometimes there are other lease violations that they care about. Big ones are pets, unauthorized guests, etc. So sometimes the landlord goes, whoa, you want me to accept a whole year's worth of rent? That's fine, but I can't evict for anything. Not going to do it. I think the other issue I think Tonda hit was on the late disbursement, and what the fees cover. So sometimes the fact that there have been late disbursements causes a landlord to file for eviction. They incur court costs and most of the time attorney's fees. And in most written leases, there are clauses that require the tenant to pay court costs and attorney's fees if the landlord files it for an eviction against them. Problem being, landlord goes, fine, I'll dismiss it if you give me the rental assistance plus the court costs and attorney's fees. And the tenant goes, well, IERA won't pay for court costs and attorney's fees. They'll pay for the late fees, but they won't pay for the court costs and attorney's fees. And that's kind of the issue that is put forward, and they move forward with the eviction. So I think in other counties, I think I laughed a little bit when Tonda mentioned that it's nice that Judge Stafford sees the issue of mitigating damages. I think that is right on the law, but I think a lot of judges outside of Monroe County don't see it that way. And I've had cases where in the middle of the moratorium, which was valid at the time, people were evicted for non-payment, and the list in the order basically said, despite tenants' efforts to pay, landlord still never got a payment. And I had gotten out on the record over and over. This isn't not in Monroe County, it's a different county. But the tenants basically testified over and over that they tried to pay and the landlord wouldn't take it. They tried to get rental assistance, the landlord wouldn't take it. And the judge says, I don't care, as long as the payments didn't make it there, sorry, you don't qualify for the moratorium. And it was really frustrating. So I think a lot of the times, the rejections come from a place where the landlord and the tenant just don't have a good relationship anymore. And they're not willing to work with each other anymore. And once that happens, despite the law, in all realistic purposes, is someone really going to want to still live there if your relationship is horrible? And most of the time they both don't. Both of them say, yeah, I don't want to be in this landlord tenant relationship with this other person. I just want to move, or I just want them to move. So I think that sometimes that happens, a severe breakdown in that relationship. I think the biggest motivator for rejecting the assistance is, wait, I can't evict this person, I don't want to take it. And that's the unfortunate part, I think, is because I think, it would really help people to get their leases paid off. But I think the issue of not mitigating damages really helps for the damages portion of the hearing, where, okay, now you want to sue me for $6,000, look at the $6,000 that would have been paid. And that helps with stability in the future for, well, at least I don't have a $6,000 judgment against me, and I can have better credit to be able to have a credit check pass for my next landlord. So pluses and minuses.
Okay. And thank you for that explanation. And I can't speak for other counties, but I will speak for some of the things that I've seen here in Madison County. And some of the things that I've seen in Madison County, unfortunately, like there's good and bad tenants, there's good and bad landlords. We all know that, right? So I've seen where landlords, because unfortunately here in Indiana, laws are in their favor more so than the tenant's favor. And they know that, and they play to that, and they play it to the absolute letter and fullest. So sometimes I've seen happen where the relationship was already kind of, not so great, but it was not so great because the tenant was asking for repairs that should have been done. And now they've gotten behind on rent, and they applied for assistance to get the place fixed because they don't have a choice. They can't move anywhere else because of the predicament that they're in. So knowing all of those things, and then they apply for the assistance, they get the assistance, the landlord won't take it, and much for some of the reasons that you're speaking of, the damaged relationship. But it's more so to do with, I don't want to fix this place, and you are unrepresented in court. Right. I'm represented in court. And so you get to go out, you have to go out, and then you've got this eviction on your record. So, and I don't know how these things are being handled. So, let's say that relationship is totally damaged and that person has to leave, and hopefully they get that mitigation piece in their favor where they don't have to pay those damages. But what about the record? If the tenant has showed that they've tried to get the money, got the money, but they're still being evicted, do you guys erase the eviction or put them in a place where the eviction can be erased and they move forward? Because without that, even if they got the money and, the credit's going to be messed up and they can't go anywhere else.
I'm going to take that if I can, because that is a great question. And I think you'll see some nods among my collaborators here. In Indiana, you can expunge a conviction for a DUI. In Indiana, you can expunge a civil protection order against you for heinous domestic violence against your partner or significant other, but you cannot expunge an eviction. It is not allowed under the statutes of the state of Indiana. There are other states that are doing things called a shadow docket for evictions, where they'll only put it on the public record after certain things have happened. We are not able to do that here in Monroe County. We also tried to create very quickly an eviction diversion program as the CDC moratorium was ending that would require mediation prior to filing an action in court. Unfortunately, we were not permitted to go ahead and do that by the Indiana Office of Court Services. So there are some things that I have tried to do that we are not able to do. But I think the ability to expunge an eviction is critical. And I'm not proposing that every eviction be eligible for that or that it be able to happen immediately. I think, however, that a mistake that you make when you're 23 shouldn't still be preventing you from seeking housing when you're 30.
Right. And also, you know, if you get into one of those situations, like I said, I've seen it firsthand where, again, the tenant is put in, you know, basically has an eviction on their record. And it had nothing to do with what they did wrong, or, you know, it was everything to do with the landlord. And to me, you know, that's not justice. But I think Miss Deborah has something that she wants to say, so I'll be quiet. But also,
no, you're saying some great things. That's why I was raising. I wasn't.
okay.
But the thing is,
what?
the tenant,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The tenant doesn't always have someplace that they could move. Let's say that, you know, the relationship is crap, so they are going to move out, and the tenant and the landlord wants them to. And even if he takes the money, and, you know, so there's not a judgment against, there are increasingly so many landlords, so many management companies, you know, that own these things that are and deciding to sell the property, because if they sell it to so-and-so other company, they can tear down the apartments that they have on the land and rebuild student ghettos, so that local type people aren't going to be able to rent there anymore. Even if they do all the things they're supposed to do, they get the rental assistance, they offer to pay it, and they successfully pay it to their former landlord, there's not necessarily always a place that they can move into.
Right.
And that's a thing that I think is really tragic. Not every county in Indiana has a college in the county.
Right.
And has the ability to say, hey, you New Jersey and Alabama parents, send your kid up here to IU, send your kid to Purdue. And I'm not saying it only happens in Monroe County. I'm saying it happens, but there is an incentive to a landlord if they're in a town that is a college town or has a fair amount of college students. There is that incentive to say, how can we make more money off of this piece of land? And they're not always wanting to elect to keep the local type people apartments available.
Right.
They would like to have the higher dollar apartments available to rent out, where, you know, it's not $1,000 a month for the apartment for the 2 bedrooms. It's $1,500 a month for this guy in this bedroom and $1,500 a month for that guy in that bedroom. And that is so prevalent in Bloomington.
Yeah.
And I don't begrudge people wanting to make money, but
I
we
wanna-
do have to have apartments.
Right.
And if I could jump in there, that I do want to look at the time because it's 2:22, but one of the things that makes me think about is I'm looking directly at Julie Thomas, because I know that the commissioners hear you and they hear that from a lot of different angles across. And I don't know if Julie has anything she wants to say in response to that, Deborah, but that is definitely a local concern that we hear. And as the county executive can't fix it all, but I know that is definitely something that the county commissioners are hearing and thinking about.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's we keep hearing, you know, why aren't you providing affordable housing? We ask, you know, we ask in response, is our wages sufficient? If we provide housing of that high density, then are we going to be annexed by the city of Bloomington? Are we just setting that up? And then the question is, what kind of housing, and how can we ensure, even if the first time it's affordable, what about next year and the next time it turns over, it's no longer affordable? And so we're grappling with this. We take it seriously, but I ask people all the time, what would you do? And they always end up saying, I have no idea. So if anybody
Tell them
has
to call
ideas,
me. I was gonna say, tell them to call me. I've got some ideas for
great.
them.
Let's connect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is one great thing about a Zoom call like this. I mean, we could probably go on like for 8 hours, you know, and sharing ideas, but you got to start somewhere. And I think today was about starting that and talking about local collaboration, because if we get good models in one community and then we can replicate that across the state of Indiana, and I know that's something that Liz Granat and CJAM are working on. They've got a great grant funded program that they're working on. And what we really need to do in Indiana is build local programs that work and then figure out how to replicate them across the state of Indiana. And we need to work with our partners across the state of Indiana, because somebody said it on this call earlier, I think it was Tana, these are community-wide problems that need community-wide solutions. You are not going to find one particular social service agency or one particular governmental entity that's going to fix it all. You are going to have community partners coming together, getting the egos out of the way, getting the silos out of the way, and figuring out how to craft solutions that help humans.
Right.
And I know Tammy's heart and Ron's heart is all about this, and they work hard all the time trying to bring, that's what this consortium's about. So I want to thank you guys for giving us this platform to share these ideas today.
Thank you. And thank you guys for being here.
You're welcome.
And yes, thank you. And Judge Stafford, some of those things that you're trying to get done with that, I think you called it the Office of the Court Services. I don't know if there's any way that I can help support you in what you're doing to make some of those things happen. But if I can be of any service to you in getting that done, let us know. With the consortium, there's about 22 agencies across Indiana. And then if you include ICRC, which is our state agency, maybe we can, and I'm not speaking for all of them. I'm just certainly saying that I would entertain the conversation with all of them so that we can all stand behind you and get some of those things for the citizens throughout Indiana. So thank you guys for that.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I think we're ready to wrap up. Is that right? Anybody have any last thing we want to say before we wrap up?
I was just hoping to get Ms. Dixon Tatum's and Mr. Mullins maybe contact information in the chat.
Okay, I will put that in for
Thank you
like
so
right
much.
now. And
Thanks
thank
for
you.
offering your assistance.
You are so welcome, and thank you. And I am typing as we speak. And all of that is literally my email address. It's that long. So I'm putting that in there now, 7579. Okay.
And I put my email address in the chat earlier in case anyone is interested in coming and observing eviction hearings by Zoom. You're most welcome. Please just let me know.
And Judge, yes, I would love to, if you could send me that Zoom link, I would love
Sure.
to be a part of your court.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Julie. I see Julie's and Ron's emails there. I stuck my email. I put a link to the county commissioners in there. We'll make sure that we have all of the documents that we've referenced in a single PDF, send it off to Tammy. Tammy can then share it with anybody that needs it.
Okay, and one last thing too, before we all hang up, I think we got 3 minutes. I think Ash had something to say. His hand went up, it went down. I don't know if you can wrap it up in 3 minutes, but I'd love to hear from you.
It was kind of back, so it doesn't necessarily need to be answered, but I think the one part of your question had to do with repairs and like about the unit with tenants needing to or landlords needing to fix the unit. And I can answer that if there's time. But I think yeah.
We can talk offline on that one. I put my number in the chat. So if you have a moment, I'd love to hear from you and all of you. So thank you all. And we'll be, you'll definitely be hearing from me again. And thank you all so much. And even our attendees, thank you guys for attending. My email is in the chat. So if you guys have questions for the panelists that you did not think of in this moment, if you should have some, please send me that email and I will definitely get it to all of them because we want you guys to have answers just as much as we want you all to have resources. So thank you all as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's always this part when it becomes smaller and everybody's faces get bigger on Zoom.
I know.
Right? Okay, well, everybody's gone now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr.
No.
Mullins. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's been recorded, so we're going to share the recording with, we'll put it on our website. We'll let you guys know when it's available on our website. So then that way you guys can, direct people to our website so that they can view this recording. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to be promoting this recording because I want it in all 92 counties here in Indiana.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And please send me an email because I want to make contact with you. I want to understand that process that you guys have. You talked about you were the intake, and so I want to understand that entire process. So that way, because like I mentioned during the call, I want this for Madison County. I don't know what this thing is supposed to look like, but I want to take the time, learn it, and get it here for the residents here in Madison County.
That's good. And the reason I'm looking this way is I'm still trying to find your email in the chat. I have.
So okay, so my email, it's long.
I can write it down.
Okay.
If
so
you have time.
Oh, I've got time. I've
Okay.
got time. So it's T as in Tammy, and then Dixon is Dixon, Tatum, which is TATUM, at City of Anderson, and Anderson is ANDERSON.com.
I've got T Dixon Tatum at cityofanderson.com, and then Ronald Mullins at Comcast.net.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I will send something out to you right now. And thanks again.
All right. Thank you all so much. And Ron, I'll give you a call in a little bit. Thank you so much. I
Okay,
appreciate you. All right.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.